Here we are at Evil Lighthouse Ministry. Let's look. Lighthouse Ministry bookstore where Evil Apostate #1 Sandra Tanner resides. Let's go see if she's in. It's Sandra Tanner, Evil Apostate #1. Oh, I have wanted so long to be able to talk to you, Sandra. I am going to have a seat here, and perhaps we shoot the breeze, yes?
All right.
All right, now, I don't know if you have ever met me, Evil Apostate, or know of what I am about and stuff, but let me introduce you to concept, all right? I was sitting in church, you know, on the pew with my white shirt on, and I was looking around and everybody was so righteous, and I was bored. Do you remember being bored in church? Yes, and I was reading the Doctrine and Covenants section 132, right? And I was reading about how, like, Emma had to accept the multiple wives of Joseph or else she would be destroyed. Do you remember that part?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself, I reject this. Like, I think this is totally a pile of steaming poopykins. And I said to myself, if I reject this, it means I am evil. And I had to say to myself, I guess I am evil. And then I started looking at other things, like I was supposed to not be tolerant of people who made different choices than I did in terms of, like, if they found themselves to be gay, or perhaps if they drink the tea or the coffee or the beer, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, I guess I am evil apostate. And then the most troublesome thing happened, like when I studied church history, and then I learned things about, like, the black people and how they were treated, and I said to myself, I would in no way accept a person who taught those things as a man of God, or to have special, speaking for the voice of God, and so I must be evil apostate if I reject those things. Have you ever had feeling like this?
Yes, I'm afraid I crossed that line. I'm an evil apostate.
Oh my goodness, so evil. So you probably do evil things like I do, like try to think for yourself with your own critical mind rather than accepting the deferred judgment and imposed authority of men who claim false authority to speak for God.
Yes, and I even drink tea.
No.
Yes.
Tea, that is the most evil thing in the world, I know, because it is against what the brethren have told me. So tell me a little bit, one of the most evil things that I heard that you do is you have a reverence for Christ without revering men who claim to be able to stand at gate between you and Christ. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, that is so evil. I have heard of people being called for discipline for, like, bearing testimony only of Christ and not of, Joseph Smith or the Thomas Monson or any of the brethren. It's a terrible thing. I don't know if I can sit this close to evil apostates such as you. So tell me a little bit, like, when did you first decide that you were, going to have a conscience separate from what was being told to you?
Probably when Gerald, my future husband, showed me some of Brigham Young's sermons. And I thought, I don't think God told him to preach this when he said, if I found my brother in bed with my wife, I'd put a javelin through them both. And I thought, I can't accept this man as a prophet of God.
But wait, he was prophet of God, so whatever he says must be right. I know because I read it in, Doctrine and Covenants section 1. It's like, whether by my own voice or the voice of my servants, it is the same. So if Brigham Young teaches it, that's his voice, that means that's God's voice, right? He is teaching a righteous thing.
Right, and that's what caused me to have a very serious problem with Mormonism when I realized the church leaders said things that couldn't possibly come from the Jesus that I'd been raised to think about. I can't imagine Jesus saying, if you found your brother in bed with your wife, put a javelin through them both.
But that's what Jesus did, right? Like when they brought the woman caught in adultery, he said to her, hey, stand right there so I can throw the javelin at you, right? I seem to remember, was that not in the Bible?
Not in mine.
What did he say?
He said, your sins are forgiven you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think there is a disconnect there somehow because if I recall correctly, the church was supposed to be restoring like the true gospel from what we remember from the day of Jesus. Yes.
Right.
That's what they claim, but
That's what they claim.
you know, I think there are a few churches that claim that too. You know, and they.
Oh yes, with all kind of different belief systems.
Yeah, and you always seem to have to follow some guy who claims to speak for God, and he restores stuff. And I think to myself, you know, if the Mormon Church really is restoring the Church of Jesus, then I'm pretty sure Jesus had to like, you know, conduct his affairs like a 1950s business corporation. You know, because I'm pretty sure that's what the church is doing now.
Right.
You know, and so, like, have you ever wondered, like, when the archaeology is going to dig up the large mall that Jesus built?
Well, I wondered where all of the artifacts are supposed to be for the Book of Mormon. I'm still waiting for them to open a museum that shows us the Book of Mormon evidences.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure, you know, they talk about this thing called Nahum. Have you heard of the Nahum?
Oh yes, in Yemen.
Yeah. They are making big blustery wind about that being proof of the Book of Mormon.
Well, it's just about a tribe in the area of Yemen, and it's no connection to the Book of Mormon.
No, I'm pretty sure if you put 4 letters together, then they are sort of the same, but not the same, then you can say that it's all true. Like, you can even ignore all the anachronisms and all of the wrong parts of the King James Bible, which made it into the Book of Mormon. Like, none of that matters, you know, as long as you find 4 letters that are kind of the same.
Right. And at one point they said that was the best evidence they had for the Book of Mormon. But I'm still waiting for them to give me a map of the Book of Mormon. I haven't seen a map yet, not officially from the church.
Well, we know Joseph Smith, like when he found Zelph, the great white Lamanite, he said that like his kingdom was from the east to the west, and they found that on, what was it, the Far West March or something like that. And so we know some geographical areas, yes?
Well, it would seem that we would, but they don't want to put it all on a map.
Oh, that's right. And I seem to remember that one of the brethren said that like Moroni himself dedicated the site for one of the temples in Utah. And so then I guess he had to like walk carrying the plates from Utah all the way over to New York.
Well, I think the Mormons think God transported him somehow. I'm not sure they make him walk all that way.
Like Star Trek, like he's beam me up, Moroni, and then beam me down, and then we put it in the ground in the New York.
Right.
It gets to be so confusing. If you want to not be evil apostate, you have to like accept all of these things to be a righteous person. Either that or just like not think about it, you know.
Right, yes. That works good. If you close your eyes, plug up your ears, you'll do good as a Mormon.
Well, but you are not saying that like Mormons are like stupid people or something like that. Like that's not how it works, right?
Oh no, you can be very smart as long as you don't read anything critical.
That's right. Like, so you can be smart, good person in Mormon church, and you have this notion of like obeying God and being humble. Those are good things, yes? But then there's this trick where they pull, where they make you think that obeying God is the same thing as obeying the white men who are in the bath of nepotism, claiming authority in the church. And since now they've equated obeying God to obeying them, then they tell you, do not look at the things. Do not study anything that we have not told you can study. And so they get away with the tricks, yes.
Yes, and that's true of the Jehovah's Witness as well. Many groups that claim specific authority have the standard of when the leaders speak, the thinking has been done.
Oh, that's how they get you. Yes, that's how they get you. You mentioned Jehovah's Witnesses, like if you had family member who was Jehovah's Witness and you wanted to help them escape that trap, because they got some problems, you know, they don't let people get the blood transfusions, they teach their members not to go to college. You know, I think they could really learn something from the Mormon church, like they're running low on cash, you know, they're selling all their locations. Like if they just told their members, hey, you got to go to college and you got to get like a big degree so that you can make lots of money so you can pay the tithing, then maybe they would do as good as the Mormon church financially.
Well, they know there's a problem when you get too much education.
Well, that's true. I've heard the Jehovah's Witness leaders say, you know, if you go to a good university, then there is large chance that you will be losing your child to, you know, apostasy. Only they shun pretty bad in that church, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they quit all association with a former Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, but the Mormons don't do that, no?
Not as blatantly. Some families have turned off from their children, grown children, but that doesn't always happen. It's not as severe as Jehovah's Witness, but it does happen, and I talk to many people that have been shunned by their family after starting to question Mormonism.
That's very sad. Like, Evil Apostate was pretty lucky. Like, my family, you know, they said, you know, Evil Apostate, even though you are emissary of the adversary because you do things like drink tea and don't judge people for the choices they make, like, we still love you and stuff, and you can still come over for Christmas and things.
Yeah. My family was more accommodating than a lot of Mormon families.
Oh, you're lucky.
They still argued with me a lot and told me off, but I saw them at dinner.
Yeah, well, the problem is that you're pretty knowledgeable, you know, and so, you know, try to get into argument with Sandra Tanner is a mistake. I'm just telling you now, if you don't know your stuff, just be careful. Be ready for, like, some facts to be thrown in your face. Now, you mentioned that, you know, they tell you not to study stuff and to only mention that. Now, I hear you have bookstore full of evil apostate books.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the bookstore.
Yes.
Hold on. Oh, boy. Oh, my goodness. Now, we're going to go to find... This is, you know, this is like Satan's library, right? Like, I'm pretty sure if we go here, we are going to find books on, like, how to worship the Dark Lord Satan. Where is... I'm looking for S. Where is S for the Dark Lord Satan? I don't see it anywhere. I see things about, like... finding new life in Christ. I see things about escaping the mind control. Where's your Satan section?
Back in the corner where we have the Book of Mormon.
Oh, she makes evil joke. Evil joke by Evil Apostate is so funny. Wait, you selling the Book of Mormon?
Yes.
Now we know you're a bad person because I can get it for free from the church. And they even send cute missionaries to give it to me, and then we have lunch talk, and then we drink, you know, Diet Coke. Now we can drink the Diet Coke together. It's good. Let's see here. You have church manuals here. Is that on purpose, or did the missionaries sneak it in?
No, we want you to know both sides.
Wait, you let people study both sides?
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty good stuff. Like the church, does the church let you study the both sides?
I don't think you'll walk in there and see the books that we carry.
Like in Deseret Book, they don't have these books?
Yeah.
Like here is book, the Read Smooth Trial Hearing Transcripts. They don't have that in the Deseret Book?
I don't know if they carry, I haven't looked on that one, but they wouldn't have Will Bagley's book on Mount Meadow Massacre.
Oh, what is that? Here it is. The Blood of the Prophets. The Mountain Meadow. I read about this. It's a terrible thing where Brigham Young, you know, he is teaching about the blood atonement, which is that there are some sins that you have to have your blood shed because the sacrifice of Christ was insufficient. And then, like, if you go and look at all the sermons, you can see all the things that he said that you have to shed your own blood for. And it's stuff like, you know, leaving the church, stealing, just crazy stuff. And then they use that justification so they can feel righteous to murder the men, women, and children of the Fancher party in the Mountain Meadows Massacre. That was not in the church history lessons from Sunday school when I was growing up. Are you surprised?
Not now.
I don't think they're going to include those lessons for a long time. Let's see what, Book of Abraham. The Book of Abraham creates a great deal of trouble, would you say?
Yes, one of the main problems that people come in and talk to me about.
Like what's the biggest problem?
Well, we have the papyri that Joseph Smith bought that he claimed to translate from the Book of Abraham, and none of it translates to what he said it's supposed to say.
Oh, Sandra, we have to have talk, because you might be behind in what you know here, because the church is telling me now. They tell all of us. You read the essay? Have you seen the essay on the translation?
Yes.
The church is telling me now. Translate does not mean translate. Like so now, if you say what you say, I say, oh, poor Sandra, you are so lost in your own ignorance. You are so deluded as to believe that the word translate means translate. We all know translate does not mean translate. Translate means
Revelation.
Yeah, just, stuff comes to your mind and you write it down. Do you know Bushman?
Yes.
No, he's a good guy, right?
Nice man.
Yeah, he's a nice man. He's pretty academically, with integrity, yes. He doesn't try to make too many excuses for the unpardonable. Now, his take is that pseudepigrapha is how we need to look at the book of Abraham. Can you say pseudepigrapha?
Pseudepigrapha.
What is the pseudepigrapha?
Well, it means you have certain words that carry a deeper meaning, but that means that you could just show someone the phone book and tell them if they had enough faith that it was really the New Testament.
Oh, that's one way that some people might look at it. Now, Bushman, he describes it differently. He says, throughout history, there have been many people who have written books as though they were authored by somebody else. So you might look in the Apocrypha and you'll find the lost book of, Bob, and it will tell the story of Bob as though Bob was writing it, but it was not really Bob writing it. And that may be pseudepigrapha. Now, some people who they have their own ideas and nobody would listen to them if it was just Bob. And so they say, you know what? I'm going to make my ideas as though somebody famous has written them. So maybe I will change it from the book of Bob to the book of Abraham, or the book of Moses, or the book of Enoch. And if I release it like that with the story that it is ancient, then people will read it. And it is fake. It's a pseudo text, a pseudo epigrapha, but it is not the real thing. And Bushman is now telling us that that's what Joseph Smith was doing. Now, do you buy it?
Well, that's not exactly the way pseudepigraphic books work, because he's claiming to translate it from an actual document that reads something different. He didn't just say, well, okay.
Oh, I get what you mean. I think I understand.
The book of Moses could be put forward as pseudepigraphic literature.
Yes.
But the book of Abraham makes a specific claim to come from a particular document that says something totally different.
Oh, so now the question is, if somebody who was not a religious person takes ancient text, nobody understands the language, and he produces translation, and in the translation it says oh, by the way, you got to obey the guy who translated this and give him money, then we would say that is outright fraud, yes?
Right.
Okay, but this is different because Joseph Smith was a religious man and he claimed superpower to translate.
Right.
So it's not pseudepigrapha in that way, but what do we do with the fact that it's not really translation? It's a big problem people have been facing, yes?
Yes, and so the church says you just need to pray about it, and then you'll see the message is true, and it's irrelevant what the source is as far as a document in front of you. The document doesn't have to translate to what he said it said. My brain cannot process that. That must be a righteous way of thinking, because evil brain says, no, that does not make a sense, because then there's no way for me to distinguish that from religious charlatan, and there are many religious charlatans out there, and if I excuse this, then I have to excuse all kinds of crazy stuff. It doesn't make sense. Right, it's just like James Strang that claimed to be the successor to Joseph Smith. He came out with a whole book of scripture for claims of his prophetic call, and yet Mormons don't read it or pray about it, and yet they want the rest of us to do that with Joseph Smith.
So that was pseudepigrapha too. So if Bushman says that we have to accept Joseph Smith's pseudepigrapha, then we have to accept that one. And then, I heard that some guy claims to have translated the sealed portion of the Book of Mormon.
Yes, that would be pseudepigraphic.
Right, so you look at that and you read it, and it's got allusions to God, it's got a theological construct about the nature of the universe, and it's got all these things that, you know, the Book of Mormon had. It even has like the notion of Christ in it. So like, if I'm going to accept Joseph Smith's pseudepigrapha, like upon what basis can I reject this other pseudepigrapha? Like Bushman, you got to help us out, man, because you're creating more problems than you're solving with your pseudepigrapha classification.
Amen.
Step it up, Bushman. You got to get on with the things.
Yes.
Anyway, I know that you have great many things to do today. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate that you have taken the time to speak with Evil Apostate. It has been a dream of mine to meet you, and I was looking for the horns in your head. I could not find them. I have the horns, you know, because I am classic apostate. You must be like this disguise of the sweet grandma who would like offer you tea and crumpets. Like it's not working. Like nobody's gonna believe that you're evil apostate. You know, I just want to hug you and like kiss you on the cheek. That's pretty much all I got. Anyway, all right. This is Evil Apostate signing out from the Lighthouse Ministries bookstore. Good day, everyone.